Hey folks, MasakoX here. Today, I'd like to talk about something that people haven't necessarily thought about, since when it came out, it didn't get as much traction as the animated version of it, the Dragon Ball Super manga. You see, this and the anime had very separate beginnings in the Super story, where they may have had identical plot points, but the rest of it kinda had a mind of its own. A different way of going about things which I'd like to bring up with you all. We were inspired to do this, Haverok and I, a few weeks ago, when we were talking about the differences between the DBZ manga and the anime, and how much more apparent they were different than we first realised. Check out that video to realise that the anime and manga are not as similar as you might think. In that video, there is one character who is much less imposing in the manga than in the anime. However, we also mentioned that in terms of Super, largely to, again, the rather pretty atypical production process, those differences are even more notable, especially during the later sagas. Both the anime and staff and Toyotaro were utilising a few key bullet point notes from the Tori bot himself. And though the source may have been the same, it was often pretty vague information, which often ended up with the creation of vastly different stories and approaches. Perhaps this is why Toriyama has taken more of an active role in providing story beats and writing screenplays like with the Broly movie and the movie coming out later this year. The animated series has in general a better quality to the earlier works of Toyotaro, which to us often felt as edgier, fanficier versions of the stories we know from the small screen. However, we also know that there are people in the fandom who prefer the versions set out in the manga, as they are more coherent and it doesn't have the too many cooks issue like we had with the Tournament of Power. Put simply, Toyotaro could run the show based on his boss's notes, and maybe a little bit of nudging here or there from his editor, but it was far less intrusion or committees that the anime team would have experienced. We want to show the first 3 original sagas, discounting the Battle of Godbits, and see which elements were better on paper. Starting with Whis coming up with the name Super Saiyan Blue. We all love our sassy angels here, Dardos and Whis especially. And when the series gets self-conscious of its quirks by using said sassy angels, we love them even more. Seeing how our favourite GOD attendant has enough of Goku and Vegeta twisting their tongues all the time, and actually starting to bite said tongues as well, with the whole Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan thing, and so he suggests a more logical name. This is a rather cool little piece of world building here that we feel was actually lacking from the anime and worked perfectly with the characters. Yeah, the Saiyans trying to scream the name out loud and failing miserably, and a much needed simplification. I feel we all owe Whis that one. But why do they keep using SSGSS instead of Blue anyway? Well, you can thank the games for that. That was the first name they came up with and could trademark. And well, I mean, you paid for the right to use it, so I guess you gotta use it. So we're stuck with it in official capacities. Oh well. Number 2. Frost is not evil, just materialistic. At least for now. If you've been watching this channel for quite a while, you know what our problem with Frost is, and how we fix him in his dedicated What If series, link up top. You expect him to be evil, but he turns out to be good, only to find out he was only pretending. So, ugh, how boring. In the manga, however, Frost was still cheating, but wasn't really interested in the tournament due to the lack of prize money, which existed in the anime. Yes, he did cheat, but there was no grand scheme behind it. Frost was just a jerk. I mean, it was still wasted potential, but at least it's a little bit more of a redeemable kind of meanness than in the animated version. Also here, he was beaten by Vegeta and not caught by Hit, trying to steal the prize. It was a cool moment for the assassin, but a far less compelling time for the blue guy. Makes us question his reason for being there. Still, he had some fun interactions later on. Number 3. Goku goes Super Saiyan God against Hit. Super Saiyan God is pretty awesome. Don't tell that to Sophie though, she will bite. And it's honestly such a shame that we don't see it more often in the anime. Though to be fair, they are making up for it recently in the Tournament of Power and in the Broly movie. But in the manga, we really do feel that Toyotaro understood the appeal of side grades and Goku using different forms for different things. And that's why those forms get more attention here than when animated. And while it was brief, it was cool to see it utilised in the fight against the dunking donut himself. And we wish we really could have had that visual animated. The Goku Black Saga was already vastly different, and you could see Toyotaro wanted to tell that story his own way. You could say that there are some AF-isms here and there, but you could maybe also pick some elements that simply just work better. Number 4. Zamasu vs Kibito. You know, Kibito is kinda cool when you take a look at the bigger picture, and even if he's losing a lot of the time, it's kind of fun to see him do anything here after his stint in Z. Not only that, but this introduction of Zamasu gives him a better service than the one in the anime. He feels much more calm, collected, and competent than when animated. Clearly, you could say that this guy was Toyotaro's little project, the first little foray into main character building for him in the main timeline. While he was bearing a lot of Zykorisms during his career, you can clearly say that the artist formerly known as Toybal really did enjoy his time with this character in Saga, and really wanted to make Zamasu have an impact, for better or worse I guess. To see two Kai attendants duke it out, we really should have gotten that adapted. Also, Beerus giving credit to Kibito and suspecting him to actually being black? Kinda neat. We always say that Shin should have done more, but really, Kibito got even the shorter end of the stick, as he got overshadowed by his Supreme Kai. Man, what a sad existence, being overshadowed by Shin. Number 5. Less shenanigans with the Mafuba. Okay, yes, it still doesn't work all that well in the manga, but here, Goku not only is able to master this by himself, but also he doesn't forget the amulet or the talisman. He takes the wrong one, but Roshi and Goku don't forget about it. That's much better. I mean, yeah, he makes a mistake still, which cost them the victory, but in the end, it feels like a genuine mistake, rather than just some kind of simple act of idiocy on the part of both characters, like, oh no, I forgot! Oopsie! Also, it's Goku who attempts to perform it, not Trunks, so no Piccolo Tube videos for you. Although in some way it is actually kind of funny, but maybe not appropriate for Dragon Ball. Number 6, Vegeta and Super Saiyan God. Before Broly, this was all we had. A confirmation that Vegeta could indeed use this form, but had already moved on to Blue. Again, as with Goku, it was great to see that the prince did not skip his red hair day, and instead was carefully utilizing it as an alternative to Blue. Of course, it has given us that inkling, not if but when, we were going to see it in the anime version, but oh boy, when we did see it, it was glorious. But that credible notion started here, folks, in the Goku Black Saga of the manga. By the way, when I was in the cinema watching the Broly movie when that happened, the crowd cheered immensely before one guy just shouted, "Yeah, boy!" Yeah, Vegeta, you that boy. Number 7. That one time Goku tried to use Hakai, and sort of failed. Goku just used it, but boy was it used so epically that you can kinda sort of forgive it for how ridiculous and sudden it was. Not only was it a pretty awesome scene, when fighting against an immortal opponent such as fused Zamasu, but it has also shown that not everything will come to our hero that easily. It gets paid off later in the Granolah Saga, where we see Vegeta being able to handle something that his rival couldn't. It was a very well-planted seed in a way, that really excited us, and provided months of speculation regarding Goku's capabilities, and also a bonus for buffed Zamasu, something which we don't really see in the anime. Overall, the whole battle with Zamasu and Black is a very different animal in the manga, and we could spend quite a few videos analysing just that, so we decided to just cherry pick it a little here, especially since we have another saga to cherry pick from later, and it kinda started strong. Number 8. Goku is not at fault in the Tournament of Power. Though we have the whole Planet Marble scene from the anime, which by the way is still one of the best uses of the Omni Kings like in ever, it is hard to deny that getting a reason about this whole ordeal being outside of Goku's loud-mouthedness, that felt so much better. Also, it reminded us that even though they look like children, the Zenos are utterly ruthless, uncaring gods that are only concerned with their own affairs and personal entertainment, which we know very little about. And that probably should stay that way. But it also led to some of the most awesome things from this arc, that being of course the GOD Battle Royale. Now don't get us wrong, the exhibition match of the Tournament of Power was kind of fun in the anime, but this brutal, massive fight between all of the GODs in the manga, a fight where they get to go serious, felt like the most epic thing in the world, and it really demonstrated to us a semblance of what these beasts could do when allowed to go toe-to-toe, go all out. Seeing Beerus fight with opponents that are on his own level felt really good. Also, we saw some really interesting powers, like the whole card thing that Belmod was able to demonstrate. It was truly excellent, and might have overshadowed the tournament itself had it gone on for just a little bit longer, and not just been like a little sampling. And yes, while sometimes it felt a little bit too comically gritty for its own good, it is still one of the coolest things that has happened in the Super manga to this day. Number 10, Jiren has more personality and is rather chill. You know what? The manga Jiren is kind of a cool guy. He dedicated his life to justice, he doesn't kill his villains, and he even refused to join the tournament because his priorities lay with protecting the citizens of his own universe. He is more heroic and hates the idea that the victory of his universe would erase the other ones. Also, he berates Vegeta and Goku for using self-harm tactics, which he deemed unwieldy. In a way, here, he's more like Superman rather than Batman in the anime version, and is much easier to get behind here. He's not as arrogant and doesn't toy with his enemies, and his solitary nature doesn't stem from not trusting others, but instead from his own deep conviction in not having to rely on other people. There is no absolute strength nonsense either. And honestly, if we had gotten that Jiren in the anime, even his Batman-like backstory could have been forgiven, because you actually care. 11. Basically, Gohan in the Tournament of Power. Once again, despite the idea that Toriyama wanted to rush through the story arc, it provided yet another bit of goodness in that Gohan here is pretty strong. Like, really strong. And he has a cool gi to boot. Gohan is the beast of the party here, instead of just the guy who would rather hang around the center of the ring and do nothing for the entirety of it. Mind you, that strategy does work in most Z battles, so why change it, eh? Shall we move on? But to be honest, we know which characters Toyotaro did and did not care about, that being most of the humans except for one. And they got a pretty lackluster treatment. We're looking at you, Krillin. I mean, even the anime wasn't really much better, but at least in that one he did something. But we know who was the character he wanted to write about, and that was Gohan. Not only did he return to form, but he was able to fight on even terms with Kefla of all people. Kefla! Which resulted in a double knockout. Kale alone had eliminated 17 warriors, including Aniraza, which in the anime required 6 Universe 7 warriors to conquer, and it wasn't an easy fight either. So yeah, she was a really big warrior, which Gohan traded punches with evenly. That just shows you how much Toriyama wanted Gohan to be a badass. And whilst we have many issues with his treatment of certain characters in the manga, at least with the son of Goku, that's not one of them. Honestly, it's like seeing two different people. And that gi is so cool as well. It seems that we might see it again sometime in the future as well. The next point though, is controversial, even for us. Number 12, Roshi's pseudo Ultra Instinct. Wait, what? We know, we meme about this often, we even get angry about it, but hear us out. It is clearly in the manga because of how much Toyotaro loves Roshi, even though he doesn't really give him much more time. He's too fixated on Gohan. Also, Roshi can't do that all the time because of his problematic nature and misdeeds that usually cloud his mind. And this was kind of random as well, but the longer you think about it, this is one of these things that you don't know whether it's awesome or dumb, and you change your mind depending on how you're feeling that day. But there is something about Roshi being a pretty ancient martial artist, someone that still can keep up despite having big power gaps and them being a thing, which makes it compelling. And honestly, this might be the biggest example of doing something ridiculous despite a massive power differentiation between the characters that we've ever gotten in Dragon Ball. Like ever. Even bigger than the Farmer and Raditz. Of course, it does invoke mixed feelings, but it's still kinda cool to see a human character, one from the original series, being able to at least surprise a big bad for once, one who is capable of trading punches with gods. Roshi as a character does have issues, but we know that he is incredibly wise and experienced. And it's not like this has changed the fate of the tournament or anything else, so it's kind of harmless, in a way. And we do want to see human characters getting involved, so this is something. We're not sure if it's good or bad, but it made an impact, so yay? Number 13, Goku and Vegeta are in perfect sync with one another. You know what's really silly? Telling us that Vegeta and Goku can't work together. Ever. In the manga, they can. After years of training together and being taught that by Whis. Sure, they do butt heads with each other, but mostly when they choose to. The manga makes it clear to us that when they fail to cooperate, it is not the lack of their ability to do so, but it's a conscious decision on their part. They can work together, and they will work together if the plot demands it, when the situation is really bad, and when the writers do not decide to throw in some artificial tension. That should have been resolved after Boo. The universe needs their combined might, come on. They really do work well as a team, and it feels like a pretty big highlight of the manga version in this contest, unlike in the anime when they spend way too much time bickering. And that's it, our 13 reasons why, and yes, number 12 was arguably a bit dubious, but that's why we think the DBS manga did better than the anime. Again, if we had to talk about every single difference between them, we would have to go chapter by chapter, panel by panel in some instances, and those versions are just so different. Still, it was fun to take a deeper dive into this and help some of you that may not have read the manga version of the first 3 arcs. That in the case of Super, you really have 2 different stories from 2 different mediums. Maybe one day we'll take a look at the original DB, but this deep dive would have to be a pretty extensive one. Leave a comment if you'd like to see it on the channel someday, and we'll act accordingly. Anyway, what's been your favourite DBS manga moment that you feel should have made it into the anime version instead? Make sure to keep this discussion going in the comments, and I shall see you in the next video. Catch you later!